Matt clocks out at 5:01. Not 5:15, not just finishing this one thing. 5:01. His manager, 61 years old, watches him grab his bag every single day like he's witnessing a small act of rebellion. In a sense, he is. Just not the one anyone thinks it is. Here's the sentence that started this whole conversation, the one that's been repeated in boardrooms and comment sections for a decade now. Millennials don't want to work anymore. It sounds like an observation. It's actually an accusation, and it's been said so many times that almost nobody bothers checking if it's true. It isn't. Not even close. And the actual data tells a story that's far stranger and far angrier than lazy. Here's the one stat that should have shut this whole debate down years ago, and somehow never did. A 30-year-old working today earns roughly the same as a 30-year-old did back in 1984. Same number, 4 decades apart, not adjusted for some minor inflation quirk, genuinely flat. Except that 30-year-old today is 50% more likely to have finished college than the one in 1984. And they're working inside an economy that is roughly 70% more productive than it was back then. More education. More output per worker. Same paycheck. Do the math on that, and millennials don't want to work starts to sound less like a diagnosis and more like an excuse for something else entirely. Matt didn't choose to be worth more to his employer and get paid the same as someone who wasn't. Nobody asked him. Nobody put leave exactly at 5:01 on Matt's job description. He decided that on his own, somewhere around his 4th year at the company, after watching his manager stay until 7 most nights for 2 decades straight and end up with almost nothing extra to show for it. Not the title he wanted. Not the raise that kept pace with anything. Just 7 o'clock, over and over, for 30 years. The old deal was simple. Work hard, stay loyal, get rewarded eventually. Matt watched that deal get broken in real time for someone else before he ever got the chance to make it for himself. So he didn't sign up for it. That's not laziness. That's a kid who watched someone else lose a bet and decided not to place the same one. Here's a real number that gets thrown around constantly, almost always without the context that actually explains it. About 14% of millennial men are out of the labor force at age 25, compared to just 7% of baby boomer men at the same age. Twice the rate. On the surface, that sounds exactly like the accusation. Except researchers tracking this found the gap comes almost entirely from one place. Millennials staying in school longer, chasing the credentials they were told. Repeatedly, they needed just to be competitive. And here's the detail that rarely makes it into the headline. By the time these same men hit their 40s, that gap nearly disappears. It was never about avoiding work. It was about the goalposts for qualified moving further away, and a generation running to keep up with them before they were even allowed to start. Matt applied to 11 jobs before landing the one he has now. Not because he was picky, because entry-level postings, the ones that used to exist specifically to let someone get a foothold, have quietly thinned out. Researchers tracking hiring trends have flagged exactly this. A genuine softening in entry-level openings, part of a slow, structural squeeze that has nothing to do with any individual person's work ethic and everything to do with how the labor market has quietly rearranged itself underneath everyone. He didn't want to work from home out of laziness. He wanted a job that existed within driving distance and paid enough to justify the drive. Some weeks, that combination simply wasn't on the table, no matter how hard he looked. Here's the part almost nobody says loudly enough. Matt isn't allergic to work. He's allergic to a specific version of the deal his manager got. The one where you trade your evenings in your 20s and your patience for a promise that quietly stopped being honored somewhere around 2008 and never really came back. He works. He just refuses to pretend the old contract is still in effect when the numbers say, plainly, that it isn't. Same pay as 1984. More productivity than 1984. A labor market that got thinner exactly when he needed it to be generous. He's not the generation that stopped wanting to work. He's the generation that finally read the fine print.